Christopher Nolan is a fantastic director and has become a figure in the film industry who's widely admired. Let's look at Nolan's specific techniques at directing. If you're familiar with the film industry or the world of cinema, then you've most likely heard of director Christopher Nolan. Known for his films that pull you into an absolutely atmospheric world that takes you on a multitude of journeys, Nolan is iconically praised within cinema as being one of the greatest directors and overall creative minds of our current time.
First thing that when you think of working with Christopher that sort of differentiates him from them?
I've never worked with a better leader. I cannot say I've ever worked with a better problem solver. And half of the problems he just solves by pure will.
You may be wondering as to how Christopher Nolan is regarded as being such a fantastic director, and what makes him stand out from being grouped in with other directors who create similar films. And to that, I'd have to say that there is certainly a lot to Nolan that lies underneath the surface. So much so that the techniques that make Nolan a fantastic director are subtle, yet are incredibly vital to his films at the same time. Now, let's finally dive headfirst into discussing the beauty and meticulous hard work that Nolan accomplishes through his films and the reason behind why he's so beloved.
I never went to film school. I never studied filmmaking in any way. I started making films when I was a kid, when I was, I think, 7 years old. Making films using my dad's Super 8 camera and little action figures, doing stop motion films, a little bit of animation and a certain amount of live action. And I just carried on making films as I grew up.
Before we go into the specifics of his directing and film techniques, let's take a brief second to discuss Christopher Nolan in a general sense. Christopher Nolan is a British-American film director who is best known for the Dark Knight trilogy, Inception, Dunkirk, and so many more incredible cinematic masterpieces. Personally, one of my favorites definitely has to be Memento. There's so much allure and pure thrill that comes from that film. With that being said, Nolan's filmography spans many decades, and if you've seen his films before, which, if you're an avid film watcher, you most likely have, then you'll fully understand that the magical worlds that he builds within his projects. It is fair to say that with Nolan's extensive line of work in film, there will always tend to be a movie of his that anyone can enjoy. Truly, there is something for everyone in his art. This is most likely because of the different genres and atmospheres that Nolan explores as he creates more and more films as the years go by. On top of this, Nolan's growth as a director has ultimately been formed from creating a multitude of projects as well, which, in turn, likely becomes the reason behind why Nolan has formed such precise attention to how he directs his films. Truthfully, there's entirely a lot more I can say about how magnificent Nolan is as a director when perceiving his films from a simple film enjoyer perspective. However, as opposed to a more analytical perception, well, this is where things get more interesting when discussing Christopher Nolan and his determination to give true love to the details. Now, I know I may sound like a broken record here, but I do want to reiterate just how fantastic of a director Christopher Nolan is. We truly do have a myriad of wonderful directors in our time that all get the love and attention they deserve, and lest they never be forgotten. But I overall feel as though Nolan deserves the same amount of love that he gives his movies.
On my films, I try to shoot as much in camera as possible. On Interstellar, my last film, for example, we didn't use any green screens. So when we were shooting inside a spaceship, we had views outside the windows. We produced all that material and we shot it and achieved the effect in camera.
There has been a multitude of people that I've talked to at my film school, and they typically tend to tell me how overrated Christopher Nolan is, and to that I have to say that he isn't truly overrated at all, but rather underappreciated. It isn't simple to make a film, let alone create a great film. It is due to Nolan's tedious amount of time that he pays attention to in his films that turns a simple film into a masterpiece. I personally believe that if anyone else had directed the same story in Nolan's films, they wouldn't have nearly have been as perfect as the original. There is a strong reason why he is so beloved in the film industry, and why audiences crave new work from him no matter what the story. You may now be wondering to yourself as to how specifically Christopher Nolan pays attention to detail. Well, you're in luck, because I have a plethora of examples to give you wonderful film-loving selves. Think of this section of the video as though it's a speed round of Christopher Nolan filmography facts. To start, it's notable how Nolan destroyed linear storytelling within momentum from one scene to another. There is no complete linear timeline in the story, leaving the audiences completely wondering what's to come next and being interestingly confused at the same time. Next up, we have the exaggerated effort taken into account with The Dark Knight Rises. Nolan hired multiple crowds of extras to fill out sets for a more realistic look rather than just using CGI, along with having the designers take 2 full years on Bane's jackets just to get the detail right. Lastly, let it not be forgotten with Interstellar, Nolan had spent tedious amounts of time on the film, taking real physics into account and making sure that the score had perfectly encapsulated what the film was truly all about. Those are simply a few examples that I can give you guys of how Nolan exactly plays out his attention to detail in directing so wonderfully without entirely talking your ear off.
To take my end of it, one of the things that's become really apparent to me in making this film and showing it to people is that everything that I know about physics, cosmological physics and all the rest, I learned when I was 10 years old. I mean, really through watching Carl Sagan's Cosmos. After Star Wars came out, everything was about space. The space shuttle went up for the first time, late 70s, early 80s, all that. And I realized that when you're that age, that excitement, and your brain is very willing to absorb these ideas.
It's incredibly impressive, and it's interesting to see the lengths Nolan will go to make his film feel more real to audiences, even if they don't notice it themselves.
Think pictorially, diagrammatically. So, okay, what do you have? You have the beginning of the film here. What's the best way to draw it? The best way to draw it is as a hairpin, like that. That's basically the end of the movie. This stuff is the black and white stuff. This is color. And this is running backwards as a series of jumps. And what we do is we cut between the two the whole way through. So we alternate scene here, scene there, scene there, scene there, scene there, scene there, and they meet towards the end of the film.
After watching this video, I do encourage you to go watch some interviews with Christopher Nolan himself, along with finding other examples of how which Nolan cements small details into his stories. How Nolan accomplishes his method and artistic style as cinematic art is incredible, and it's something that certainly made an impact on the film industry. Whether or not you consider him overrated, I find that he's earned the title of being well known in cinema in any way. Christopher Nolan is a film auteur, and he will seemingly remain that way until the end of his career. His little clues and hints that stay at the foundation of his films leave such a wonderful element of surprise and thrill you when you finally figure it all out, or just notice the small details. And this aspect mixed in with his enticing stories can engross just about anyone. His themes of identity and time make us contemplate ourselves and our lives, and just how we're living day to day. And that is something that will never be overrated.